Coming to you live from underneath an upturned car in Shaftesbury Square, Belfast, it's this week's Apocalypse. I'm your co-host, Kevin Lenihan. With me, as always, under the Hellfire / Angel Fire / Holy Fire is John Ferris. John, how you doing today?
I'm not feeling too blessed.
No.
Ironically.
No, I don't feel like I'm in the ever-loving arms. Do you? No. So it's finally happened.
Yeah.
We had to name the show This Week's Apocalypse, didn't we? And now it's the actual apocalypse. So down come the angels to cleanse the earth with their, as I said, holy fire, burning oils, holy whatnots.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. Well, I mean, who would have thought the angels would be a problem?
Well, you know what? I think maybe Hollyweird.
Ooh.
And also not Hollywood, actually. I think I'm getting a bit ahead of it.
Yeah.
I'm getting a bit too much. Somewhat Hollywood, but also lots of other people maybe see angels as problems, John. Mm-hmm. Or at least a puzzle to be unlocked. So we're just going to get straight into it here before we burn to death in this terrible, terrible fire that seems unquenchable. Well, I threw a glass of water on the Inferno earlier and it did nothing.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's getting closer and closer and closer. It's engulfed that Italian restaurant over there. There's still people inside it eating, but, you know, they just must be very hungry. Anyway, so I've got some movies about angels being problems here. If you'll indulge me, and
of
we
course.
can gather around the light of my my non-specific, non-branded tablet, and watch them in this car. So let's see. First of all, I have from 2005. I have Constantine, directed by Francis Lawrence.
Ooh.
Yeah, Constantine. Yeah, as in like the Emperor. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm
Is that a
assuming
historical
so, yeah.
movie about the Emperor of Rome? No? First Holy Roman Emperor? No? Well, we'll find out. Then we have The Prophecy from 1995, directed by Gregory Widen.
Sounds promising.
It does, doesn't it? This was all prophesized. I remember reading it in a book. I know that's don't worry, John. That's long before I discovered movies. So
the power of movies,
Before
back when we had to read.
Yeah, back whenever you couldn't get a story in you without like words in your eyes. Ugh. Although speaking of words in your eyes, there's a film I did have to watch. We will have to watch with words blasted into our eyes here in subtitles. Wings of Desire from 1987. Directed by Wenders, which is a wonderful name that I love saying.
Or is it Wim Wenders?
It might actually, you know what? Because is he German?
He's German, yeah.
He's German.
I think he is.
He probably is.
Actually,
I assume he is because it's a German film.
Before we
it's Sky Over Berlin is also the title of this, I think.
That's a much better title than Wings of Desire. But
yeah.
The Sky, especially because like this movie kind of it started as like a love letter to Berlin.
Oh, okay.
For Wim Wenders. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about that later, Mr. Educated, Mr. Showing off.
I would use the word educated loosely.
Yeah, well, you better not have read any bloody books.
No, I just watch documentaries.
Yeah, we don't do that on this show. We don't read books, we watch films. All right. Well, let's sit down and watch these movies, and specifically don't read any goddamn books.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the fire has died down somewhat, and I think there's demons wandering around, but they're not interested in us. They're busy, like, getting beaten up by angels. But also the angels are sort of... people are getting caught in the crossfire, let's say, and I assume they're being assumed bodily into heaven. They're just going up in flames. Is that what that is?
Let's hope.
Let's hope for our sake.
That's a very positive spin on it.
Yeah, they're being teleported. Remember that film, what was that terrible film about the volcano that had Jason Isaacs in it?
Oh, Skyfire?
Skyfire, yeah. Those people were being apparently teleported with fire in that movie, so I'm assuming that's what's happening here, except they're being teleported upstairs. Right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, John, what did you think of Constantine from 2005? It was a comedy, was it?
Yeah, at parts, yes. This movie, I don't know. I kind of don't know why I like this movie, but
I know exactly why I like this movie.
It's like it's like a wee dirty pleasure kind of thing. It's
a guilty pleasure, maybe.
Guilty
Dirty
pleasure.
That's a different thing, John. And if you're interested, I have some websites.
Ooh.
I have some online stores you can purchase things from. Yeah.
It's just kind of fun, to be honest.
It is.
There's not like, if you don't look too deeply into it, if you're not actually, it might, I don't know, you would probably know more about this if you're not a fan of John Constantine as the comic book character, then it won't matter too much. But there's some people take issue with the fact that he's not English in this movie, and he's not.
There's all kinds of things that are very different.
They've radically changed the character to make him fit more into the Hollywood mold.
They have.
I mean, he's fucking Keanu Reeves.
He's Keanu Reeves.
He's not fucking Keanu Reeves. He is
Keanu Reeves. Yes, that's true. No, I mean, because I'm a big fan. So what they've done for this movie is they have taken the plot. Well, they've taken some plot elements from. There was a run of Constantine written by Garth Ennis, who is probably my favorite comic book writer. Local lad as well.
Yeah,
he's from Belfast, which is pretty cool. He's lived in New York for like 30 years now, but he used to live here. Yeah. And his first comic book was actually about Belfast. It was a comic book called Dicks, about two guys who live up the Shankill Road who become private detectives. And it's excellent, but I don't know, probably completely impenetrable to anyone who's not from here.
As most things from here are.
Yeah, a lot of the sort of the dialogue is written phonetically. Okay. So that even me reading it, I would be like, what's that say? And then I would say it out loud in like a real broad accent, and then I would be like, all right, that says that. I would hear myself say it, be like, all right, okay, and it would suddenly make sense.
Yeah.
I'd be like, cool. But he's one of the best comic book writers, in my opinion, ever.
Yeah.
He's known for being brutal, and he has this weird gift for being brutally violent and weirdly heartwarming and touching all at the same time. He wrote The Boys, of course, which is now a hugely popular TV show, which is a great example of his sort of storytelling style. He's a great one for dehumanizing violence, but in a way that really makes you feel extremely bad inside. It's not disgusting as such. It's like unnerving and but there's not really a lot of that in this. There is some stuff in the source material. There is.
I mean, this is very much a product of its time, and that there's not many risks here.
Yeah,
for no. There is, in the sense that it's a supernatural action story, but they're trying to make it as marketable as possible, and
the source material is a lot cleverer than what happens here. The basic elements they've taken is, and minor spoilers for the first maybe like 20 minutes of this movie, maybe, but so the elements they've taken, there's a thing, it's called Dangerous Habits is the name of the run, because it's all about him like smoking himself and drinking himself to death, and how he gets out of that and around that. So in this movie they've taken that element, but the way he gets out of it, the way he manages to get around that in the comic book is way cleverer than in this film. But I like how they handle it in this film.
I like how they deal with that as well. I mean, like even things like I can see why they had to have Keanu Reeves in it. It was marketable name and stuff like that. But I don't think he'd like. I think now he could play this role a bit better. Like he's got like he kind of plays a bit of a, well, he's not a dick in John Wick really. He's just kind of very stoic, and
he's very serious and a little callous. Yeah, let's say.
And Constantine's meant to be like this. Constantine is meant to be a dick, but there's something about 2005 Keanu Reeves that it just, for me, it just doesn't work. It's just like, he's still too much of a nice guy in my head. It's like, it feels really forced. But
your knowledge of the man outside of the movie maybe is the problem.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not a problem. It's a good thing that he seems like a really cool, nice guy in Hollywood, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily gel with the, I'm gruff and I'm angry and I let people die to save myself and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's Constantine's whole thing, is like, people are always dying around him.
Yeah.
And he can be a bit of a dick about that, and he has this guilt that he just represses.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in this, he's like, yeah, I think just having Keanu Reeves in that role makes him seem like too much of a cool guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he's too much of a cool guy, and you're like, but I still really like it. I think this film is, like, I will say, I had a great time watching this film again.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a bit stupid, which is also, you know,
it's very stupid, but that's part of its charm.
Yeah, there's part of its charm. It's part of its charm. They've transplanted the whole thing to Los Angeles. You know, again, if you want to moan about the differences in the comic books, I'm not a purist. I don't really care.
Yeah.
But I love Constantine. I collected all the Hellblazers. Like, I have like the whole first sort of, like, I think it's like, it was a 9-book run, if you want to do it in like trade paperbacks of like the story arcs. There was like 9 of them. If you want to think of them as episodes, basically. Like, I went out of my way to collect all those. They were written by different people. They were written by Neil Gaiman, wrote some of it. Garth Ennis wrote some of it as well. And again, you know my thoughts on Garth Ennis. I love Neil Gaiman too.
Yes, he's brilliant.
Yeah, so yeah, a lot of really great comic book writers wrote on Constantine, and that's a great run. This diverges heavily in a lot of ways. The background lore is even a lot different, but it's like, it's not something I'm gonna get hung up on, because I can easily take this as its own thing.
Yeah, I mean, they change enough on it that it doesn't make it shouldn't be an issue. And
no,
I mean, anyone with a bit of sense can see that the original source material is not going to work in the same format, and that condensed, it's not going to sell well. At the end of the day,
no.
They're trying to make money on this, and it's going to be very niche. This is before things like, you know, this is before the Marvel universe kind of took off, and things like Guardians of the Galaxy, which were very niche, were able to, like, they were taking a big risk with that. Yeah,
and it really, really, really paid off.
It could have backfired.
Yeah. And like DC, though, this is DC, and DC have been trying to do the same thing, and they have failed again and again and again.
They can't even get their popular characters. They can't even get them to get a
they
good
flubbed
movie.
Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman. Like, they really screwed all that stuff up. I mean, people liked the first Wonder Woman a bit. And everyone was surprised by it, and then they followed it up with a trash fire.
That is rough, that one.
Yeah, and Aquaman, you know, I had high hopes for Aquaman because
you fool.
It was being because it was being directed by James Wan, and I have liked his films. He has been involved in, I think he did did he do a Fast and the Furious movie at one point?
He might have.
Did he do 8? Did he do like the 8th Fast and or 7th or something?
He might have, actually.
I feel like he did one of those, but he's done a bunch of horror movies I really like, and a couple of ones that are not good. And some other stupid films here and there. But like, he's the guy who came up with Saw.
Yeah.
You know, which he did the first one, which is the good one. Yeah. You know. And he did The Conjuring, and he did all that. Anyway, I'm getting off track about the DC Extended Universe here, but James Wan's pretty good. But anyway, so this is a comic book movie before comic book movies were what they are now. Yeah. This is like 3 or 4 years before Iron Man came out.
This is when they tried to hide the fact that there were comic book movies. It wouldn't have been advertised as a comic book movie. It would have been like, no, it's supernatural stuff. Do you like Buffy?
It was like, it's this weird middle ground.
They've got a big audience, don't they?
Yeah, because Spider-Man 1 and 2 were real well received, and the X-Men movies were sort of going, but then X-Men 3 and Spider-Man 3 destroyed everybody's confidence in the comic book movie again.
Yep.
And then you've got this coming out then on the tail end of that. They're like, uh-oh, people are turning on comic book movies now because look how bad Sony have flubbed it. So yeah, they do kind of obfuscate that a bit. And they do diverge quite a lot, but I still think it's thoroughly enjoyable. It's silly. It's exactly silly enough. The performances in it are, I guess, what they need to be. They're not good. Some people's performances are all right. Tilda Swinton's fucking brilliant. I'm just gonna say that, but she is so good in pretty much everything. But she is Gabriel the angel, you know, and she's
a breath of fresh air from some of the acting's poor.
Yeah, there's such a great contrast between her and another English actress, Rachel Weisz.
Oh yes,
whose American accent is, I'm just gonna say it, it's not very good, John.
No.
I'd go so far as to say her American accent in this movie is bad, and if I was American I might be offended by it. I don't know. It's a little bit, it's like, it's so she's got this weird breathy thing that she's doing to like, and it just feels really, it feels fake.
It
feels
odd.
like someone deliberately doing a fake American accent. I don't know, it's very strange. But whereas Tilda Swinton is like, because we get a wee bit of Rachel Weisz's accent and then we're immediately in a scene with Tilda Swinton, who is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And just and she's got this real, like, I think the reason she's cast, they've done her up in this sort of androgynous kind of way.
Yeah, I mean,
because
she's done that in a few movies.
She has, yeah,
in her career as well. Like, you know, she's very good with that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, and she just has this great sort of like ability to be aloof, warm yet aloof.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe her portrayal of Gabriel in this film. And
there's more depth to the character than maybe this movie deserves as well. You know, like you kind of want, like, out of all the characters in this, she's probably the most interesting and the one that you would watch a spin-off of, to say, you know. Or
there was a sort of, in the comic books, they had kind of a spin-off thing happen. They actually ended up with a Lucifer spin-off, which became a TV show as well. So like, there's a TV show called Lucifer, which is actually a Constantine spin-off.
Oh, right.
So that TV show Lucifer that's on, I think Netflix own it now.
It is, yeah.
Was a spin-off of the Amazon Prime TV show of Constantine.
Oh, for God's sake.
That was done by a network, and then that network didn't want it anymore, and then Netflix bought it, so now Netflix do a spin-off of an Amazon show.
That's crazy.
Is weird.
That's mental.
Yeah, it's really strange. But that's their Lucifer, because again, if you want to talk about divergence from the comics, Lucifer in the comics is they're going very much with, you know, Lucifer the Lightbringer, Lucifer the most beautiful angel.
Yeah. You
know, he's very handsome and erudite and stuff in the comic books. And now Lucifer, I'm gonna say in this this is something I'm gonna probably bring up later about another movie, but this movie has one of, if not my favorite movie Satans.
Yeah.
My favorite movie devil. Now, there's another movie devil in another one of these movies that I also extremely like a lot, and might be the high point of that movie. It's probably the high point of this movie as well.
I would say so, yeah.
Tilda Swinton is fucking great, but Peter Stormare is just so good at being arch and weird. He just has this wonderful ability to just make you really unnerved looking at him with these weird tics and twitches and stuff. That he's so good.
Apparently, it was his idea to be like that. They were going to originally put him in like a black suit, and he wanted to be. He said about white and having. He might have been the one. I don't know. It could come from the comics as well. So you'd know better than I would. But the tar on the feet thing as well.
That's from the comic books.
That's from the comics, right?
Sludge.
Yeah. I love that the contrast of him in the white suit with the tar feet.
It's very good.
It works so well, and the fact that he's barefoot as well, like. Yeah, he's wonderful in it. He's very creepy.
He's very good. It's probably my favorite. He's my favorite thing in the film. He's not in it very much. He's a very small part, but it's really him and Tilda Swinton are the most impactful things in the movie.
Yeah.
And they are this great sort of like, because they're both playing sort of characters who are adversarial to each other.
Yes.
In a way, and they only have like a very short time on screen together, and it's actually really powerful when they're both in front of each other. And you have a little interplay between them, and that and again, that's sort of like no spoilers. I'm not going to say what happens or anything, but that to me feels that's the part of the movie I remember when I think about this movie. I think about that specific scene.
Yeah.
And I guess they're both angels, because I mean, Lucifer's an angel as well.
Yeah.
You know, he counts He's an angel. So this movie's got angels all over it, and they deal in half-breeds in this movie.
Yes,
More
that's
than
right.
they talk about, like, the ones that are on Earth are, like, half angel so that they can, like, muck around with the balance and half demon or whatever.
It doesn't really explain how you become a half demon or half angel, but
where they come from is question marks. And also that is not at all from the comic books as far as I recall.
Okay.
Yeah, because straight up Gabriel is Gabriel's the Archangel Gabriel, you know.
Yes, yeah.
And, you know, Lucifer is able to come to Earth and stuff and all that stuff. So yeah, that's all kind of nonsense. But yeah, this movie feels like you're watching it and you're like, this is a bit, to use the English parlance, a bit naff. But it's, again, it might be, it kind of, maybe is it like a Frightener situation where it's just, Keanu Reeves is very charming and the effects in it actually are quite good most of the time. Some of the time.
When they're bad, they're very bad though. That like there's a demon that attacks Constantine on the street and it's made up of bugs and stuff. And that looks pretty grim.
I like it whenever like their skin burns off and they're all like nasty looking, like demon, half demony, like
Balthazar. Whenever he's attacking him, he's trying to get information off him. That looks pretty cool. And I read something about the effects, like they had like a load of different like stages of him, you know, becoming more and more demony. Yeah. But that's, again, it's one of those ones that obviously the time period, early days for CG and stuff like that. So yeah, you can't really blame it too much for.
Well, it's not that early days, really.
Well, for some of the stuff that they were doing, like that demon that is made up of all the insects and stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's a lot of moving parts. To do that in the early 2000s
was now working way better than it did then.
Conceptually, it's a really good idea, and I think it's lifted from the comics. But
there's a name for that kind of demon. In fact, there was one of those demons. Funny you mentioned Buffy earlier. There was an episode of Buffy that had exactly that demon in it.
Yeah, right enough.
He's like a traveling salesman or something with all these bugs coming out of his trousers, and he's like, that was a weird one. Actually,
we've all been there.
Indeed, we've all had bugs coming out of our trousers at some point while we were working as traveling salesmen. Oh yeah, indeed. So yeah, this film, I did have a big dumb smile on my face throughout this whole film.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's not going to be for everyone. In fact, you know what, all three of these movies you could probably say that about.
Yeah,
but it's kind of a product of its time. Mm-hmm. It's just a bit of bubblegum fun, really.
It is. It's just like Buffy, which we keep referencing. It's a bit of bubblegum fun. Well, the bowls of blood have begun to pour from the sky, and I think I heard the whore of Babylon or whatever in her 9-sided head face. Or whatever, and the beast of the oceans. I don't know. That was a very confusing book. See, this is why you don't read books, John. Yeah. This is why you watch movies instead.
Imagery. Ugh.
Yeah, there's too much interpretation in a book, John. You know, I can do too much with my imagination, and we don't want that.
No, it's best that someone else does that and puts it onto film and projects it into your eyes.
Hopefully in a computer-generated slurry, if it can be. And just pour it straight into my brain. Thank you. Now, speaking of computer generated, nothing is actually really computer generated in this movie.
No. I would have went with speaking of slurry.
Speaking of slurry. Speaking of slurry that can easily be poured into my brain.
Yeah.
What did you think of 1995's The Prophecy, directed by the writer of Highlander, Gregory Widen?
I think Gregory Widen is a better writer than he is director.
He's really good at coming up with a basic concept and characters and having them get out of control in other media that he's probably profiting off for years afterwards.
Yeah. I mean,
that definitely happened with the Highlander for him. There's so much of that. This TV show and everything. And with The Prophecy, this film has sequels.
There can be only one. Apparently not.
There can be only one, except when there's like loads. And then there can be only loads.
This, I mean, this movie, it's weird because I don't. It makes me almost look back on Highlander and think, was it just the personalities and the actors that were in that movie that made the characters stand out? Because one of my main gripes with this movie is like the characters are. There isn't much. It's like there's no one to really grasp onto. Like Elias Koteas does what he can.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot to work with.
And there's actually a few times where, I mean, he should have been given a couple of different takes. Like early on, I was like going, what the fuck is going on here? Like there was a couple of the reads that were just off, and eventually he kind of like seemed to get into it. But him and Virginia Madsen are meant to be like, they're the human characters that you're meant to kind of identify with, and yet you get nothing from them. And in fact, Virginia Madsen is just kind of weird in it because there's this whole like real creepy, like pedophilic kind of thing with Eric Stoltz's character and the young child, and instead of responding like a normal human being, the Catherine, you call Virginia Madsen's character, just kind of like goes, "Hey, don't be doing that."
Yeah, he's as far as she's concerned, he's this weird homeless guy that's living in this abandoned wing of the school.
Yeah,
that is doing something, has done something to this kid that has led to her now standing outside vomiting.
Yeah,
and saying she doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And she doesn't immediately call the police. She waits like several hours before contacting the police.
Yeah.
And
like no one reacts the way a human being reacts.
No, you'd be like, okay, kids, come on. You'd be immediately just like, okay, get behind me, kids. Come on, come over here. Right, get behind me. Okay, get out of the fucking building, Mr. Ginger Eric Stoltz, scary weird man, please, who's dying on the floor.
Yeah.
Or something. Because he is like bleeding to death on the floor of the school.
Yeah.
Or something.
And there's like real creepy vibes, even the way he's acting. It's like, you would not be just standing there going, hey, you should probably get out of here, please, if you don't mind, if it's not too much trouble.
If you don't mind, this is an elementary school.
Yeah.
And you're a strange man sleeping on the floor in a natty overcoat.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and again, like, it's just, there are some actors in this who are doing good work.
Yeah.
In particular, I said this before, I mentioned this in the last one, but this has a Satan appearance in it.
Yes.
That I saw this movie a long time ago, when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say, when I was probably about 13, 14, I think, when I saw this for the first time. It was just like on, probably, I remember seeing it in passing with my brother.
Yeah.
And being really surprised by, I think it was the idea that it was this film about angels, and the angels were dicks. Now, that is obviously a theme in media, it seems, but at that point I was not aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking that was actually kind of a cool concept, that there were some good angels, but then there were angels that were assholes, that were like basically like trying to like kill a kid throughout the, that's, you know, the Archangel Gabriel himself, played by Christopher Walken, who is very good in that role. He's good, but he's playing Christopher Walken. You know, he's doing the Walken thing.
It just happens to fit well.
Yeah, it just works kind of well. Everybody's hair looks weird because they're trying to make them be angelic, and his hair in particular is very like, he's extremely pale with extremely black hair.
Yeah,
and it kind of looks a bit fake, but not as fake as the hair in Splice. But anyway, that's a callback to a previous episode, by the way, with Adrian Brody. Anyway. So I like him in it. I like the wee guy. I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy that he is torturing, essentially.
Adam Goldberg. Jerry, you call the character, yeah. He's
great. He's very good at playing a guy who's fed up and wants to die and is rotting. Yeah. He's great. Elias Koteas' performance is, as you say, they probably should have given him a couple of other takes, because
It's like just the early. It's just the early scenes seem that.
Yeah.
It just there's something really weird where it's like going.
The parts where he's still dandering about being I'm a cop, all that stuff. It feels stilted and awkward.
Yeah.
Like
definitely.
maybe they didn't have a lot of time to film those scenes in the places they were filming them.
Yeah.
They just had
quickly say the line. Say the line.
Yeah. Quick, say the line before the cops show up. Yeah. We'll pretend we're not filming.
We need to like rush out before the superintendent comes up.
Yeah, maybe. So that stuff is a bit weird. Sometimes he's great, and sometimes it's weird. Yeah, there's a contrast between his performances scene to scene.
Yeah.
Which maybe there's an explanation for that we'll never be privy to, because nobody cares enough about this film to look into it. Now, there were many sequels to this film. There's like 4 or 5 of these, I think.
Yeah.
In the way of every film that Gregory Widen, Gregory Widen is involved with. I mean, there was a huge spin-offs of the Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same thing. This has a lot of that. But anyway, back to my original point that I was going to make. Lucifer in this film is is played by Viggo Mortensen, plays Lucifer.
Yeah.
And there are basically 2 scenes, much like Constantine, he's not in it very much, the character of Lucifer, but when he shows up, he's very memorable and says some horrible things and is a real creep. Yeah. Oh my, he's such a creep.
At least him being creepy makes sense. To know Lucifer, should be a creep and should be kind of like off-putting.
Yeah, because Eric Stoltz's character is supposed to be like the good angel. Yeah. And you're like, what's this guy doing to these kids? And he's a weirdo, and he's like, there's a bit where he like puts a guy's eyes out and he has this and throws him out a window, although I think the guy has no eyes, I'm not sure, but he has this black blood, and then he kisses the blood. Yeah. On his fingers, and you're like, ugh.
And I mean, there's something to be said as well, where like, we didn't even really mention the plot of Constantine, but it's a very straightforward, man in between this like demon and angel war, blah blah blah. And this one, the plot's it's kind of weirdly convoluted. It's simplistic to begin with, where it's just like, okay, there's going to be like another war in heaven, essentially.
That's the prophecy of the title, is that this war between angels is going to reoccur. And but then there's this whole like weird thing with like an evil soul, and it's in this one particular person, and Eric Stoltz has to like suck it out of the dead body. He goes and kisses a corpse in a funeral home again, ramping up Eric Stoltz's creepiness factor.
So he kisses the corpse and then kisses the little girl, and then she ends up with this, and the little girl's acting is she's actually better at acting
when she's being evil.
Yeah, when she tries to act like a little girl, it's really off-putting.
When
really
she's
wrong.
Being the psychotic military commander that is trapped inside her, she's actually creepy, and it's very good. But whenever she's trying to do regular little kid
scared.
things,
it's like, are you?
It's not that good at all. Yeah, she's just saying what she's feeling.
Yeah,
in an unconvincing tone, but whenever she's talking about like putting heads on spikes and stuff, she's like really convincing, which is weird.
But yeah, like so, like all that stuff doesn't work. Like it's like weirdly slow at times, or most of the time through it, and I just I always find it really weird. I kind of enjoyed this though, that the angels have this like weird thing that they kind of perch themselves on the edges of chairs and things.
It's so funny because it's so forced.
And I think it's meant to look like kind of cool.
It looks so gammy. I think maybe they saw now, what year? This is 95, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is like before The Crow. I think The Crow was it the year after this? I can't remember when The Crow came out now, but I feel like it was maybe a year or two after this. But I think The Crow gets that kind of right in a way that this film does not.
Yeah.
Because in this film,
The Crow was 1994, so it was the 94? Year before.
Oh, right. So they were, were they trying to do The Crow and they just fucked it up then? Because the thing about The Crow is that, like, And again, I'm not going to edgelord this, like, oh, The Crow, amazing. I do quite like The Crow. I think The Crow is a really well-made, extremely superficial film.
Yeah.
But, yeah, in this, they try to make them seem like they're sort of light like birds,
Yep.
I think is what they're trying to do. So that, like, every single time someone's perching on something, and then they will aim the camera down at the ground and then show their feet landing.
The feet shot, oh my god.
There's so many foot shots of their feet just going.
Quentin Tarantino would be proud of the feet shots.
He'd be like, get them shoes off, lads. 'Cause that's what he's like.
Yep.
Oh.
Disgusting. You've wasted a good foot shot with shoes.
Thankfully, we don't have to look at Christopher Walken's bare feet hitting the ground. But yeah, every single time they get down off a thing, they never just bounce off it. It's always, you see them jump a bit and then it flips to a shot of their feet hitting the ground silently. And then they're like walking around. So it's supposed to be like as if they're like birds, like the way birds just go. But the thing is, even birds, you hear, like, if you've ever been around a pigeon, you can hear their wee clickety-clackities whenever they're on the ground, you know. Ugh.
Yeah.
I think they're supposed to be like lighter than air because they're supposed to be like ethereal and angelic. It does not come off that way. It just feels really fake.
Yeah.
And like they perch on things they don't need to be perching on. Like there's a bit where a guy's perching on like a wet concrete sign. Yeah. And it's like 2 feet off the ground. If he was standing, he'd actually be slightly higher up.
Yeah.
But he's like all hunched up on this tiny little sign, and it looks so goofy. It's laughable.
It's like a grown man on one of those like mini motorcycles, or it just has this like odd look to it. Like, it just looks daft.
It's like when you see like a 17-year-old like riding like a BMX for like a 10-year-old. You know, and they got their like arms way down and their feet, they're hunched over because they have to be like that, and they sit on the seat and their knees are up under their fucking chin. It's exactly like that.
It's kind of weird as well. Like I was annoyed that the angels' powers seem to fluctuate as to what who they're dealing with, because Elias Koteas has major plot armor in this.
He certainly does. He should be very dead.
Yeah, like it shows you Gabriel literally just like tapping people on the forehead and they fall down, and yet Elias Koteas is knocking 7 layers of shit out of him at one stage, and you're going, what's happening here? There's no explanation given for that stuff either. It's kind of odd, but like overall, it's just kind of forgettable in a way.
Yeah.
I think even part of the reason we have this in this category is like we're kind of going, I remember liking The Prophecy. Like the two of us behind the scenes, we're going, I remember liking that, and we should check it out. And then it's kind of a bit disappointing.
Yeah, seeing it now as a fully grown adult, it's kind of like, right, well, Viggo Mortensen is still, that scene, the two scenes he's in are still kind of great.
Yeah.
His lines are all really good, or maybe it's the way he delivers them, I don't know.
Yeah.
But he delivers them with such like nasty, disgusting, perverted enthusiasm that you're just like, he's very good as Lucifer.
Yeah, it's like he's seen Christopher Walken, man, I'm gonna have to chew the shit out of this scenery here. I'm acting alongside Christopher Walken, right? Here we go.
You got to imagine for an actor that's a bit like intimidating, especially like Viggo Mortensen. This is before Lord of the Rings and before everybody knew who the fuck Viggo Mortensen was. Yeah. Whereas now you've got like Christopher Walken, who is very, very, very famous for being a great actor, and you're like, right, well, I gotta do something at least on par with that.
Yeah.
So here I go, and I love you more than Jesus. That's the line that gets me every fucking time when he says that, because you know what? I believe it.
Yep.
When he says it, I believe it. As he sets it all up so well, and it's so creepy, and the things he says he'll do to people and that he could do to them, you're like, that's fucking horrible, you dick.
Another character I really love, who we haven't mentioned, is one who's not in it much either. Amanda Plummer's character, of Rachel, and she's the second. She's the one who's dying in the bed, and Gabriel.
Both of the people that Gabriel has enslaved are great.
Yeah,
she is brilliant. She really fucking wants to die as well. Oh my god, it's so miserable.
Because like he stops her getting that release because he's the angel of death, so he can stop them passing, and he even threatens her at one point. They're in a diner and he threatens her, like he's going, right, come on. The only reason he actually stops her from dying is because he can't drive.
Yeah, that's his excuse, because it doesn't make a lot of sense that he is making these people do these things. I think it's just something they thought would be cool to have in the film.
Yeah.
But their explanation for it is so weak, and it's literally that he can't drive. He's just enslaving these people.
But yeah, she's always great. She always plays these like odd kind of characters.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in a lot of. Speaking of Quentin Tarantino, she's been in a few of his films.
Yes, yeah.
She's very good in Pulp Fiction. She's Honey Bunny in The Robbery, in which she plays this just extreme ball of nervous energy, and she's fucking brilliant in that.
Well, one of my favorite roles of hers, it's one of my favorite movies as well, is The Fisher King. She plays Lydia in that movie. Kind of Robin Williams' love interest, and she's always that for me. She's always Lydia in my head.
Don't talk about that film too much because I'll cry.
Yeah. Plus, we can't talk about that because it's Terry Gilliam, and we've already proven in previous episodes if we start talking about Terry Gilliam, we will not stop.
Yeah, and I don't want to have to make a theme for Terry Gilliam now as well.
Especially, if we start going down that avenue, that the Prophecy isn't a great movie, and it's not enough to like really kind of keep your interest. But Terry Gilliam's great, so you should go watch Terry Gilliam.
Actually, to be honest, I might actually have to bring up Terry Gilliam when we're talking about the next movie. But anyway, well, you know what? I think that's our cue, John.
Yep.
So let's move on to Terry Gilliam. I mean, let's move on to Wings of Desire. Well, the seas have boiled and the clouds have turned as fire, and I don't know what else. What else, John? What else has happened?
I don't know, but there's some kind of strange beauty to all this chaos and destruction.
John, are you a pervert?
Yep.
Oh,
but that's beside the point.
Kind of. All right. Well, just keep a lid on it until the world's over, alright? Okay? Is that okay? Okay, cool. Right, you stay over your side and I'll stay over my side. I'll try and keep away from the holy flames that are now licking the edge of our terrible cover. And while we're doing that, John, you can distract yourself from your deviant ways and you can tell me what you thought of Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire, or Sky over Berlin, depending on what title you're going with.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Well, finally we have it. We have concrete proof of why Peter Falk is so fucking awesome.
Because he's from heaven.
Yeah. We all knew this. Yeah, I really like this movie. It can get a bit pretentious a lot.
Yeah.
And it's a bit slow.
I agree that it's a bit too long for the story that it's telling.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's scenes that drag out. A couple of them, I actually kind of have an explanation, because I watched a documentary of the making of this. It's just on YouTube. Just if anyone's interested, just type in Wings of Desire on YouTube, and it'll be one of the first things that comes up. So there's like a scene where the acrobat, the love interest for our main character, our angel character, it goes on for quite a while, and you're like, right, okay, we get it. Yeah, he's enamored with her performance and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
The actress apparently learned how to do this all. She was not a trained.
She couldn't
acrobat.
do trapeziums.
No. So she got training for like, what was it? I think they said something like 4 months or something.
Wow.
And all of that is her. So plus Wim Wenders was his girlfriend at the time. So I was kind of going, you know what? It's probably just like he's as amazed as the character is, and just wants to show like everyone, she fucking learned how to do this. Look how awesome that is. And like showed you basically every moment of it.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on.
It goes on too long.
As a viewer, I will say it goes on and on and on and on and on in a way that is kind of I say it's about at least twice as long as it needs to be.
Yeah.
If not more. Like you could have got the points across in less than a minute, and it goes on for a long time.
Yeah.
But
do you mean the movie in general?
No, just that scene in particular.
Yes,
I'm talking about where she's just like flipping around on the trapeze and doing all the different positions, and we're getting her thoughts.
Yeah.
And they're having a really protracted conversation with the guys who are like underneath, and the guy who's like her trainer.
Yes, yeah.
And all that goes on. Now, I think this film is, I'll say this film's gorgeous. This film is a beautiful, beautiful film. There's a lot of like real like German expressionist stuff in it.
Yes.
From like the 30s, you know, it's like referencing films, like visually referencing films from like the 20s and 30s, like the beginnings of cinema.
Yeah.
There's some extremely like high contrast static, beautiful high contrast static shots of angels standing on rooftops or on the shoulders of statues and stuff, and it's very reminiscent of something like, I don't know, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or even Nosferatu or something like that.
Yeah.
Where you're like this beautiful high contrast static shot, and there's a very pronounced film grain in it as well, which whenever it's in monochrome, which the majority of the film is, it feels very deliberately like it's referencing that stuff, and it is gorgeous.
Well, I think we should mention that the cinematographer Henry Alican, again in that documentary, and if you look into this movie in any kind of way, he's so important for the look and the feel, and like so much of this movie is that look and feel. Like it's almost like a silent movie, or it would be if they didn't have the edited in thoughts, because a lot of it is just these. This is what I'm saying. Like it's almost like a buyer beware thing before you go into this movie. It is very slow, but deliberately very slow. To know it kind of, the whole black and white thing is to put you in the angels' shoes. You're seeing everything from kind of their perspective in a way.
You get this very sort of like they're not really part of the world.
Yeah, there's something missing. It just feels like so cold and isolated in a way. And I mean, even the conversations they have with each other, and both angels are brilliant, brilliantly cast, and I'm just so emotive. And I don't speak German myself, but I know of these actors, and they seem to be very good at their craft.
Is fantastic, and like Otto, is it Weinbergen or something? I can't remember.
Forget
the other
his
Otto
name.
Something. Anyway, there's a lot of times where they're not even speaking, and you just get shots of their faces, and you get exactly what's going on from the way they're smiling and looking around and looking at people and gesturing towards people.
Yeah.
You do so much with body language that you almost don't need them. Like, you can almost see this as being a silent movie.
Yeah.
It's still getting it without the sound.
It's such a bizarre movie as well. Like, when you actually look more, like, the more you look into it, the more, like, wee small things, that, like, just what I'm saying, where there's very little dialogue between characters in this. Most of it is them reading people's thoughts, or like they're because the angel in this seem to be kind of divorced from the world in a way, and they're just kind of keeping a record almost of
they're observing things that are happening and making notes of it, but they don't necessarily seem to fully understand why people are doing the things that they do.
Yeah,
but I think that's Bruno Gantz's character. Is he Camiel or something?
Damiel, and then Otto Sander is Cassiel.
Yeah. So he's Damiel, and like he's got this sort of itch almost. It's like this wanderlust kind of thing. It's almost like a metaphor for wanderlust of like, I don't want to just look at the world anymore. I want to go out and I want to be part of it and I want to experience it.
Yeah.
And that's his thing, is that like he's always had this thing and never acted on it. but this like trapeze artist is like triggered it in him.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I think I'm gonna do it now. I think, and he has all these conversations with Cassiel about like, I think I'm gonna do it. Would you not? Do you not feel that way? Are you not like? Do you not want to like know what it feels like to like actually touch someone's hand?
Yeah.
Or, you know, and then he has these great, and of course you cannot understate the impact of Peter Falk in this movie.
Brilliant.
A guy that, you know, and it's weird, like, because you're watching it and you're like, all right, that's the guy from Columbo and he's in The Princess Bride and I know who he is.
Yeah.
And then everyone starts calling him Peter at some point. You don't get told immediately that he's playing himself.
Yeah.
But he is. And because at one point someone calls him Peter and then later on someone calls him Mr. Falk.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, he is playing himself. That's weird.
And then like there's those like the four young guys who like walk past and go, "Is that Columbo? Is that Columbo?" It's like, no, look at what he's wearing, kind of thing. Like,
it's like he wouldn't be walking around in a fucking horrible coat like that if he was the guy that played Columbo, and then they just wander off.
Yeah, like, I mean, even that's brilliant. You know, it could have backfired. That whole thing could have not worked, but Peter Falk is genuinely a really good actor, and he plays it brilliantly, and he's kind of this much needed. I wouldn't say like comic relief, but
it's levity. There's an amount of levity to the scenes he's in.
Yeah, because the rest is all. And again, I'm going back to that documentary. I was so glad that when Wenders, he literally says like they got Peter Falk because he kind of realized that. And the angels have to be, but they were too serious. They're serious all the time, and he kind of wanted something. Like, you need some kind of breath of fresh air in it. Yeah. And Peter, like, every time Peter Falk is on the screen, it's just like, brilliant.
Now, there is a funny scene. There's a scene where he just keeps trying on different hats. And I was kind of in wrinkles during that scene because it was so funny. Because all the different weird things he was saying about each hat as he put it on. And it was kind of spot on.
Yeah, it's wonderful. My wife loves this movie, and she actually
wrote a dissertation on it.
She did, yeah. Which I haven't read, but maybe she'll hook it out sometime. But
I was hoping you would read it before we did this, and then come up with all this like information and try to pretend like, oh yes, I know so much. I noticed all this stuff.
Yes, yeah. Oh, I'm so clever. This is the first time I ever seen it. Well, this isn't the first time I've seen it either, but. What was I going to say? It was something about the hats there, I think. Oh yes, she was saying like it is actually kind of odd how that hat does make a difference. Like each one does kind of give you this completely different look to him and
view of a person. Yeah, because he's looking for a hat that will help him blend in so nobody will point at him and go, here you're Columbo.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing. He wants to go out and dander about Berlin, but he doesn't want to be recognised.
I do have a piece of trivia just on that point, that apparently Peter Falk went missing one of the days of the shoot because he was taking a big long walk through Berlin. He had never been to Berlin before. And he was taking in the sights and meeting people, and he just kind of lost track. He just got enchanted by the city. It is an amazing city for anyone who hasn't been there to visit. And yeah, he actually stayed. It's either a week or 2 weeks after shooting, after he was finished with the movie, at his own expense. He just wanted to like see Berlin more and get to know the city, which I think is kind of cool as well. Like to know. Yeah.
As someone who has been lost in Berlin, I can attest to that. That it is easy to get lost there, but it's easy to find your way back.
Yeah. To
somewhere recognizable, but you can just kind of wander around and be like, "This is cool. Oh, what's that? What's this?
Yeah.
What's that?" You know. I went interrailing once and accidentally, on purpose, spent like an extra 2 days there, more than I had intended.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, oh no, I want to just wander around here and, you know, look at things and stuff.
It is amazing. It's an amazing city. And what I said at the start of this podcast, you know, when Wenders, he was working in America, and he came back to Germany. He came back to Berlin, and he kind of was walking about wanting to do a movie about kind of Berlin as a city, and especially at that time, to know the Berlin Wall was still present. It features in this movie quite a lot.
Fallen, yeah, because it was 89, I think it came down, and this is 87.
Yeah, exactly. So he was walking about, and like this idea of because Berlin actually has a lot of like angel imagery in the architecture. This came about, and then he kind of got some help with writing the screenplay and stuff. But that's kind of where this whole idea came from. And then the screenplay was written by a playwright, a German playwright, and a lot of these ideas, a lot of what they said inner monologue with people. It's very poetic and very kind of over the top, but extremely. Yeah. But that was this collection of stuff that he had written, and they weren't going to use all of it until it got to like kind of the editing phase, and they were kind of like, we should just put all this in and like have different characters say this.
Yeah, some of it comes quite sing-songy at times. Yeah. Or someone will be saying something in their head, and then it'll turn into like a lullaby kind of lilt to it, the way they're saying it. Yeah. In their head, they're sort of singing it to themselves. And especially when something rhymes, you'll see that happen when two lines rhyme. It may not rhyme in the subtitles, but it rhymes in the original German, then you'll hear them there, and you're like, that's quite nice. And every time it happens, it sort of like shakes you a wee bit, and you go, oh, that's cool.
Some of the dialogue is just heart-wrenching, or like it just a lot of it's like philosophical.
That's happening in people's heads is like they're there. You feel like the angels are there, and they are sort of saving people.
They're trying to anyway. They seem to have some kind of.
Not every time. Yeah, it's like there is a guy who is going to throw himself off a building.
Yeah,
and I think is it Cassiel?
Yeah, Cassiel
is there, and he's sitting on a thing, and then like puts his hand on the shoulder, and the guy seems like he's going to change his mind after that.
Yeah.
And then he's walking around like furiously, and he's sort of following him, and he can't physically stop him.
Yeah.
But he's sort of, you see that again, it's a testament to the acting and the body language of the actors, that you can see the angel is trying to do something.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really know what to do or how to stop it, and ultimately, it can be quite sad.
Yeah. Oh, there's a general like sad. It's going to say undertone, but overtone in this movie. It's very like it is very bogged down, but it all works. Like the atmosphere's, the atmosphere is so important to make it watchable. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be quite boring. Yeah. But you have that like, because there's not much actually kind of happens as far as the plot. It takes a while for it to get there, but. It's almost just this, like you're just watching these angels, and it kind of helps get into their shoes a bit more, where you start to feel divorced from the real life in this movie. You're just a participant, you're just watching all this, and I mean, just what you're saying there with the one who throws himself off the building. There's one before that they do get through to, like where you hear his thoughts, and he's like, oh, I'm worthless and blah blah blah, and he's being so negative, and then I think it's Daniel puts his hand on the shoulder, and he kind of goes, what happened? And he kind of sees a wee positive, a wee glimmer of light, and then he rolls with that, and you're like,
he finds something to hold on to. Yeah, which is nice, but again, which sets you up, I think, then for later, when you're like, you expect them to be able to save everybody, but they can't.
Yeah.
And then even points out, like at one point when they're talking, there's like, we are too few to make a difference.
Yeah.
That's the point where whenever Damiel is getting really like, I want to be human and stuff, and he's like, are we really helping? And he's trying to justify becoming human, essentially.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think I'm helping a bit, but not enough.
Yeah.
And maybe I should just go and be a human and indulge my curiosity over doing this job, essentially, that I've committed my whole life to. And I think what you were saying there about it feeling quite cold and you becoming divorced from reality, I think the contrast between the monochrome and the color really helps with that.
Yeah.
It's like when it's black and white, and it is most of the film is like that, and then just the point where it suddenly sort of fades into color.
Yeah.
And
it's shocking.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at now is real and is something that's happening to people.
Yeah.
And then it fades back into black and white, and you're like, oh no, this is how the angels view it. And like,
if done wrong, that could have felt gimmicky. You know, it's certainly not the first time this idea has been utilized. You know, I mean, you've got the Wizard of Oz, where like it starts off in black and white, and then whenever she gets into this this other realm,
to the magical world of happiness and weirdness, it's suddenly bright and
colorful. And like, I also think it works in that movie very well, but in the hands of a lesser director, I think that you could fuck it up.
Yeah.
But this feels so ingrained in the story and so important to get that atmosphere right and get that feeling right and to really sell the emotive scenes as well.
Yeah, it works really well, and it makes it, because like as you were saying, like as we've both been saying, it is quite long and drawn out, and can be kind of a bummer a lot of the time. It is a certain ennui to a lot of the film, and a melancholy, but there is sometimes like that contrast to color, and then what's happening. Sometimes it's even more uplifting when it's uplifting. There's a great scene that takes place between Peter Falk and Damiel on either side of a fence.
Yes.
That I thought was wonderful.
Yeah.
I thought that was the high point of the film for me. Was that one? It's like maybe like a minute and a half or something of them just having this conversation through a fence, and it was fantastic. And I was like, and that was a point where I was just like, oh, I love this film now. I really like. Up to then, I was like, oh, this is very good and it's very well shot. Yeah. And then I saw that scene and I was like, oh, this is lovely now. I really like this now.
Like, but how good is that? That like, yes, before that moment, you're like the angels. It is almost clinical in the sense that like you can appreciate how well shot it is. You can appreciate all this, and then when it goes into color, that's when you have the emotive scenes. You're like, this is beautiful, and like this is
this is gorgeous and lovely. It's not just like well proportioned.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah. It's where you make the transition from that clinical words to like something emotional. Like this is actually beautiful.
I also love the
uplifting and heartwarming and just nice right now.
There is a few characters who they kind of they circle round, and there's ones that one in particular, the Cassiel, seems to visit quite a lot, is this old man, and I think some of the
storyteller,
of the thoughts that he has, like some of his dialogue is absolutely amazing. Like he has this whole thing about how no one's written an epic about peace, and
and like whether or not like that's like, is that the default human condition, is war therefore because no one's interested in peace. People want peace, but when they have it, they're moving towards a war. And that's the thing, that people are fascinated by things happening, and like, because I guess the idea of it I think it's playing with the idea of a story structure of like every story, every story has a central conflict. There's always some kind of conflict in every story, whether it's emotional or physical. And that's what drives a narrative forward, which I think is probably something they were probably thinking about when writing a screenplay or writing a play. That's something that's at the forefront of someone's mind, is like, I need to have a conflict that I then need to resolve in some way. And like, it's all spoken through him. The point where I thought he was going to turn out to be God at some point. I was convinced.
I can see that, actually. I didn't think of that, but that would make perfect sense.
I was convinced he was gonna like, there's a point where he's walking to, there's a point where people are like, angels are walking towards a wall and they walk into it. There's a point where he's also walking towards that same wall, and I expected him to disappear into it as well. Because I was expecting there to be this revelation that he's God and he's just down and around, and that's why he's following the angels, following him about.
He's actually credited, the character's name is Homer.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think that adds another layer to it, that to know.
Fair enough.
Who knows?
Okay. Yeah, because he is talking about epics, and Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey, which were both about wars.
Yeah.
You know, and
funnily
someone... enough. Yeah.
But,
so, I mean... That's pretty cool.
This movie has so many layers, and there's so much, so much symbolism in it that, again, it would turn some people off. There's a lot of... You have to be in the mood for this movie as well, I would say. You have to be prepared for, like, this slow build, and... and just kind of let yourself be taken with it, and like
yeah.
It's a bit weird. I kind of left a lot of time because I knew what this. I know what this movie is, and I'd seen it before. I left a lot of time between Constantine and the Prophecy before I watched this one, because I watched this one last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here.
Yeah, and I think you need to, because to watch all three of these in one day or something like that would be a bit jarring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Watching them all one after the other would be a really strange and uncomfortable experience.
Yeah.
Maybe
like Wings of Desire wouldn't fit in there at all. Even if you watched it first, it would just have you in this like philosophical mood. You know, that you'd be like, "Why am I watching this trash?"
Why am I watching Constantine now? Which again is a film that I enjoy.
Oh yeah, same here.
Yeah, but goddamn, and yeah. So I mentioned Terry Gilliam before, and
yes,
I feel like I should follow through on that, even though, you know, it may be a bit out of place. But
no.
Yeah, I feel like
Terry Gilliam is never out of place, or always out of place, and that makes it.
But there was a few points in this movie where there were certain shots, and I was like, this feels like a Terry Gilliam movie now. But I think maybe that's because Terry Gilliam has done some German expressionist stuff in his films, and also just like. There's one particular shot that is on the film set. They're filming in this building that's sort of like this dilapidated, collapsing building.
Yeah,
and there's this great shot from above through like a collapsed floor with like rebar going over it, that's sweeping back and forward, looking at people, and that was the point where I was like, this feels like something out of 12 Monkeys.
Yeah.
At that point, that whole bit on that movie set, it felt like a location from 12 Monkeys, and it felt like it was being shot in the same way, which is a movie that came after this.
Yeah.
So
it definitely it gives me at certain points, like there's bits of Brazil.
Oh yeah.
And I can see where you're coming from, but yeah, as you mentioned, Terry Gilliam has utilized a lot of like German expressionists.
Whether or not he was influenced by this film specifically isn't necessary, because he just may have been influenced by other films that also influenced this film.
Yeah.
Because you can see that in there. But yeah, I just thought it was worth mentioning because I brought it up before and I felt like it should follow through on that.
I should also mention that the sequel to this movie, Far Away So Close, I remember, I mean, take this with a grain of salt because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I'm pretty sure it's good as well. It's different in the sense that this actually follows Cassiel. He ends up, he becomes human, but it's more about, he has a rough time being human. It's like the problems with him, and it's made in 1993, so the Berlin Wall's down and all now, and he ends up falling in with like criminal types and getting like, instead of like in this movie where Daniel sells his angelic armor and gets money, Cassiel's gets stolen and things like this, you know. But again, not positive. Probably not the most upbeat of movies, but you know, it's still there. I think from what I remember, I might watch it this weekend.
I haven't seen it. Well, I haven't seen this film. This was also, I should mention, the first time I've seen Wings of Desire.
Yeah,
as well.
Terrible name, like it's an off-putting name.
Yeah, and it was. Now, am I right in saying that this was remade as City of Angels, starring Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan?
Yeah,
that is technically a remake of this film, right?
Yeah, that, and even in that documentary that I've mentioned multiple times, the the director of that movie is in it, and I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailer alone.
Yeah, it should tell you everything you need to know about whether or not you want to actually see that film, which I do not, and I like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
I've
yet to see a good Meg Ryan movie, and I'm not particularly like going out of my way to watch any, or even
When Harry Met Sally.
Okay,
that's good. I'm not. I don't know if you'll agree with that. I'm just going to say that's a good movie.
It's been a while. I can't remember it, to be honest.
That's a good movie, and she's in it.
Okay.
So I'll say that. I don't really like.
It may be the exception that proves the rule.
Maybe, yeah, because there's a lot of like the most famous ones of like Sleepless in Seattle and all that, like the Tom Hanks ones that she's in. I'm sure they're very well made for what they are, and people do like them. It's not my cup of tea. Rom-coms, romantic movies in general, when that's just the central thing, emotional manipulation at the center of them, generally don't jive well with me. I'm more of a sort of a, if I want like a romantic film, I'm more of sort of a Raising Arizona kind of guy,
Fisher King.
Oh, the Fisher King, indeed. That's another very good one. Yeah. Absolutely.
I love it in that where both the relationships feel very real in that. All the relationships in that. There's lots of relationships. Like that's why I think that a better title for this is that the sky above Berlin. Wings of Desire gives that impression that it is a romantic comedy or something like that. But
it's a bit it's pulling on that. That is a small part of the film.
Yeah. It's it's
an important part of the film.
It's an important part, but it's also in a way a very minor part to the overall message of the story. It's an important part to that character, but it's not the focus.
Yeah,
and I think that's the important part. Where the remake. Again, I suppose I can't really say much about it because, neither of us can because we haven't seen it. But it certainly gets advertised as the kind of standard rom-com.
It's concentrating on that aspect because that's
I fell in love with an angel.
An audience, exactly. And on that note, I'm going to stop talking about this film because there actually is a lot more to say, but we can't sit here forever and just talk about Wings of Desire. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it again in a minute, though. All right. Well, here we are. We've ascended bodily into heaven, and we're at the pearly gates. The fire got us, but that's okay because it was heavenly fire, and it didn't hurt that much.
Okay.
Now, I kind of want to go back because this place is full of angels, and they basically just wrecked our house.
Yeah.
So those guys suck.
Plus, I miss colours.
I miss colours too. It's all black and white.
Yeah.
And there's this constant choral sort of singing going on the edge of hearing. It's actually kind of hurting my ears a wee bit.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
I wouldn't mind like some kind of drum, even a snare or something.
Percussion.
There's
percussion would be lovely. Said for percussion.
Percussion isn't heavenly.
No, apparently not.
Apparently not.
Percussion is the purview of the devil, is it? The devil is the drummer. In the band, in the afterlife, in the celestial band, the devil's the drummer. Actually makes a lot of sense.
We've played with a few drummers, and that checks out.
The devil's the drummer. Oh man. Yeah, that's true. Okay, I bet God plays the saxophone. Ugh.
Bound to.
But anyway. So we kind of need to get out of this, but before we do that, John, and I feel I know what the answer to this question is going to be, as you have been the last several weeks, it has been very obvious. Which of these did you think was the best movie?
Probably the one we talked about for half an hour until we went, we should probably stop this.
Until we realised we were running out of time. Yes.
Yeah. We were running out of time, but not running out of what to say. So.
Indeed, yeah. I still had more to say, but I don't want to go on and on and on about it because people should you should watch this movie. If you're, again, it could be divisive. I would probably just say it's Wings of Desire / Sky over Berlin, whichever one you want to call it. But it's great.
Yeah.
It's extremely well made. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It's well shot. It's very well written. Again, it was interpreted through a subtitle track for us.
Yes, yeah.
I'm sure if you spoke the language, you might have a different idea of it. You might like it more, maybe, if you actually spoke German.
There's a few, there is a few scenes that go on too long and are maybe a bit pretentious, but overall, I think the movie genuinely, makes sense of its of the pace that it's at and everything. Yeah, really does. And I don't think overall it's pretentious. I just think there's a few scenes I'd love just edit it down a wee bit more. We mentioned a few scenes. There's that scene with Nick Cave playing. that
it goes
doesn't
on.
really.
They want to play the whole song.
Basically, yeah.
They want to play the whole of like From Her to Eternity, and they shouldn't do that because it's a movie. It's not. I didn't come here to watch Nick Cave, and I would love to go watch Nick Cave, but in the middle of this film, it is jarring, and it goes on. I had actually, it goes on and on and on and on, and then it keeps going on. And it's really odd that it's in there, but I guess it was Wim Wenders just like a big Nick Cave fan.
It seems to, because I think Nick Cave is in the next. Lou Reed is in the Stay Far Away So Close, or whatever you call it. I'm saying Stay Far Away So Close because that U2 song
that's on the soundtrack. Yeah,
that was written for this, I think, as well. But yeah, I think Nick Cave might come back in the seconds. I don't know.
Weird.
I don't know. Maybe Wim Wenders is a fan.
It's strange that he's in it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Like early on in the movie, the acrobat is listening to Nick Cave. She like has an LP.
Yes.
And I was like, "Hey, that's Nick Cave." I remember shouting that at the screen when I was watching it, and then being like, "I feel like I shouldn't have shouted that."
Yeah.
To be honest, I actually found it distracting.
It is a wee bit.
Because I was like, "Oh, she's listening to Nick Cave now," and then it was weird.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, I guess it's not a perfect movie. There are some editing choices maybe in the movie that could have been different, but it still doesn't really detract overall from how I feel about it. Which is that it's kind of brilliant and beautiful and affecting, and it's melancholic at times, and a lot of the time,
most of the time.
For most
but
of
it's
the
also
time.
like the overall message of it is like the joy of life. It is like appreciating these little things. As soon as Daniel becomes human, he gets a cut on his head, and he's tasting the blood, and he's amazed, and then he tastes coffee and all, and it's just this amazement of these tiny wee things that of course we take for granted, and that we kind of overlook every day because
it's little joys. It reminded me a wee bit of in Amelie. When every time they introduce a character and they talk a wee bit about them, and they have a little sort of quick cut sort of choppy section where they show them doing things, and it's like their likes and dislikes, and their likes are always like, it's not like, oh, they love doing this hobby or whatever. It's like she likes putting her hand into the grain sacks.
That's the standout one for Amelie.
It's weird little stuff like that. It reminded me of that whenever he was just running around being like, whoa, and like, oh, it's cold, Like, it's like whenever Peter Falk is talking to him, like, because Peter Falk at one point knows he's there. He knows the angels are there, and is talking to them even though they can't talk back to him. He's like, I know you're there. I'd love to see your face. And then he was like, he's standing there describing things to him.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's saying, it's cold, I feel cold, and like I rub my hands together and it feels warm. And like Bruno Ganz is like staring at his hands with this big fascinated smile on his face because he doesn't get it. But it's more and more just like, oh, I really do want to do this now.
Yeah.
And he's talking about coffee and getting coffee, and like that's one of the first things he does then when he becomes human is he goes and he gets a cup of coffee, and he's like, yes, he was right.
If Columbo tells you to go get a coffee, you go get a fucking coffee.
Yeah, it's great. And like,
but I love the extras in those scenes as well, because because obviously they don't know he's speaking to an angel, so they're just like looking at Peter Falk going, what the, like. It's so well done because like obviously they know, they can see Bruno Ganz, the actor there.
Yeah, because he is standing there because he's in the film. Yeah.
But there's like, I love it. It's very well done. Just them like going, looking at him like a crazy person, going, "What the fuck's he talking to?"
Yeah, but that's again, the beauty comes out mainly for me in the scenes with Peter Falk.
Yeah,
where Peter Falk is talking out loud about things. You get some monologue stuff with him as well. It's really good.
Yes, yeah.
Where he's like, whenever he's sketching people, and he's like, she's all like, "Ooh, I'm being drawn by this guy," and be like, "Oh, I bet he's really good." And he's drawn. He's like, "This is a terrible picture I'm drawing of this woman." Like, he's saying her face is lovely. He's talking about how nice the shape of her face is and stuff. And he's like going, "This is a bad picture, but maybe I'll get better."
Yeah,
yeah. And like, that's nice.
Yeah,
I think that's
apparently all that stuff, all his like internal monologue stuff was written by him after the fact. Like they when Wenders rang him and said, we need internal monologue.
We need a narrative over this.
Yeah, and he just kind of spewed whatever he could out, like just kind of went wherever he could to record and just went on this, like, whatever train of thought he had at the time and sent over like a long spiel of random nonsense. And when Wenders, in fact, one of the very first inner monologues of Peter Falk that you hear, he talks about his grandmother. And when Wenders in the documentaries like kind of sit there going, it doesn't make sense because as a fallen angel, he shouldn't have a grandmother. But
it's a good
we
point.
liked it, so we put it in.
I never even thought of that until now.
Yeah, so there you go. There's like a little goof that they
actually
they fully
just Peter
knew.
Falk talking about his own grandmother.
Yeah, so, but I think it adds, and like I think it's in that documentary that Peter Falk actually says at one point that he asks when Wenders, well, do you not want to write it? And I'll read it. And it's like when Wenders says something along the lines of, no, like what would I know about what one of my angels would say, kind of thing of like, you're that angel, so you write it.
It's you. We cast you as you.
Yeah, so you have to write it.
He's playing Peter Falk in the movie.
Yeah. So I think that works very well. Like, and there's an authenticity to what all his inner monologues that really comes out. But what I'm going to say next is just I kind of feel sorry for Constantine and not so much the prophecy, but they didn't really stand a chance against Wings of Desire.
Not against this. Yeah, right. So the prophecy lives better in my memory than it does in reality.
Yeah.
I think Viggo Mortensen's performance holds up really, 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 really well.
Yeah.
And I think Christopher Walken's performance and the performance of his two stooges, that he is his unwilling servants, are brilliant as well.
Yeah.
Everything else in the film is kind of a damp squib.
Definitely. I would
it's
agree.
all kind of whatever, and it's not edited together very well. It's a lot of jump stuff where you're like, wait, where did the end of that scene go? Where you're like there's a point where Elias Codes' character comes home to his apartment and Eric Stoltz is there perched on a fucking chair and he's like, what the fuck are you doing in my house? He pulls a gun on him and everything, and they have this conversation, right? And then it just ends. And he's somewhere else and you're like, wait a minute, there was no resolution to that scene? He was just suddenly somewhere else? I was like, did he leave his apartment? Did he explain himself? Did they go? There's a bunch of stuff that happens several times in the film where a scene ends and it feels like it didn't finish. Yeah. So the editing in it isn't great. The script now and then is garbage.
Again, like let's say what we said. The idea of this movie is better than the execution. It could have done with maybe someone writing filling out the characters a bit more. Maybe that would have saved it, but then you still have Eric Stoltz kissing a dead body, then kissing a child. So
swings and roundabouts. Very bad roundabouts.
I'm not sure you're using that phrase right.
No, I'm not. No. That's something. Yeah, it's something that they just need to. They shouldn't have put that in. Yeah, that shouldn't have been in the movie. It's bizarre and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Constantine's
just dumb fun.
Constantine's fun.
We didn't mention Shia LaBeouf's awful performance.
He's terrible.
Where 98% of his lines is John.
He's so bad.
John.
Yeah. Even sounds weird when he's saying John.
Yeah.
John.
And he says really so much.
It's like he's putting all this stink on his accent that isn't necessary, or it's just ugh.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's trying to be the character from the comic books, because that guy's a London cabbie.
Yeah.
Which
hence
makes
the name
sense
Chaz.
For him. Hence the name Chaz, short for Charlie.
Yeah.
Which only an English person would shorten Charlie to Chaz.
Yeah.
But, again, I'm not going to get griping about differences between the comics and the movie, because it actually doesn't bother me at all, really. Because they've still got the comic books, and they're great. I never actually bothered watching the TV show.
No.
But maybe I will someday. I don't really think I care enough. But this film, Constantine, is fun, and again, it has a really good Lucifer in it.
Yeah.
Peter Stormare as Lucifer is probably my favorite movie Lucifer. Him, Viggo Mortensen, and then Robert De Niro, I think, in Angel Heart is also.
I mean, even
great.
more important for what we're kind of going against here, which is angels.
Fucking angels.
Tilda Swinton,
fucking angel. Yeah,
as our yes, Lucifer's an angel as well, but he's a bit different.
Yeah, but, he's because he is the devil.
He's kind of his own thing now, isn't he?
Yeah, in the prophecy, they do sort of paint him as one of them as well.
Yes,
he's very much, he dresses the same as Christopher Walken does.
Yeah, they're all dressed kind of gothy
and he sucks. But he's so good, but he's horrible, and which is the point. Of the prophecies Lucifer is he's fucking horrible. The one in Constantine is also horrible, but he's got Peter Stormare has this real loving it charm where he really likes being the devil. You get that impression from Peter Stormare in Constantine.
Yeah.
He's really happy to be the devil and be Lucifer. And he's loving it, and he's such a creep in a really different way than the one in the prophecy, where he's getting all up in his face and like he's gonna lick him, and he does all this weird stuff with his tongue, and he's got a big shit-eating grin on his face most of the time that in an instant can turn into this just nasty scowl.
Yeah,
that just flips, when he hears something he doesn't like. And it's fucking brilliant. And again, him and Tilda Swinton are the most memorable things in the film. And they're both fantastic.
Yeah.
In an otherwise middling sort of silly movie that is fun.
Yeah.
But
I would say, if you want a fun kind of wee supernatural action romp thing, Constantine's you can do a lot worse than Constantine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't think I could recommend the prophecy to anyone really. Check out the performances of Viggo Mortensen maybe on YouTube. I'm sure there's clips because that is kind of pretty awesome. And I think for someone who wants something kind of deep and something interesting, that asks a lot of questions and gets you really thinking, Wings of Desire is a fantastic movie.
It is. I mean, it's very obviously the favourite here for both of us. I have a certain place in my heart, and always will, for this Constantine movie.
Yeah.
Despite all of the flaws that we've been over. But again, most memorable Satan. There is no Lucifer. That's one negative I'll say about Wings of Desire, is the devil's not in it.
I think he's in the sequel. I think Willem Dafoe, if I remember right.
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
Willem Dafoe might play the devil in Far Away So Close. I need to watch this over the weekend. So
that's good casting if it is.
Yeah.
I would like. Yeah, he's also a guy who's very good at being arch.
Yes. Yeah.
Peter Stormare, very good at being an arch nemesis. Viggo Mortensen, it turns out, even though he's best known for playing incredibly big hero guy in Lord of the Rings, is very good at being arch as well. In this, he's very good at being arch. In A History of Violence, actually, there's a point where his character, he does a lot of stuff like that in A History of Violence, which is very good. He's broad range that he plays in Eastern Promises as well, or Eastern Promise, which is again, we're back to the Cronenbergs here. Cronenberg. Try not to talk about Cronenberg, but he came up anyway.
He always just floats up.
He always just comes. No, he doesn't. He doesn't float. He comes crawling out of a fleshy wall just to announce himself, and then slurps back in. And you go, "All right, David, bye." So yeah, Wings of Desire is the best movie. If we're gonna rank them, obviously Constantine is next.
Yeah.
And the prophecy is just so dull mostly, and it is poorly edited and lazily plotted.
And nothing much choppy to say, really.
There's not a lot to say about it. I like Elias Koteas He's been better in other films. Fallen, in particular, we saw him in fairly recently, in which he was, again, arch and brilliant. And probably the best thing in the film. Best character in the film, certainly. So, yeah, Wings of Desire, easily the best one of these movies. Now, John, which one of these movies helps us either get around, get one over on angels, defeat angels, or get away from angels? Which one has the best sort of encyclopedic sort of advice to give us a good idea of what the fuck to do now? Because I want to go home because my Xbox is there.
Yeah, no Xbox in heaven. Apparently it's a design of the devil as well.
Yeah, it's this big matte black box that has heat blasting out the top of it.
Well, the devil does love idle hands.
He does indeed.
There's nothing more idle than sitting vegging out the video games.
It's so fun playing the Halos.
Look, I got an achievement. Did you, son?
What did you achieve? I got almost kills on this level. Oh.
As someone who suffers from the sickness of, I need to get 100% completion.
Yeah, you're really bad with that stuff.
Yeah.
You're a slave. You're a completionist in the not the worst way.
No, I've got better over the years.
But you let things go eventually, but yeah.
Satan's definitely got his claws into me.
Indeed. Maybe, is he our out, maybe?
He might be, because I was just going to say, well, in Wings of Desire, they more or less have to just make a choice themselves, so I don't think that's going to help us here to know. Yeah,
I don't know if we can convince them here. Why don't you all become humans so I can beat you up?
Yeah, because, it worked for Damiel, but, Cassiel seemed a bit... He was like a bit more dubious, like, no, we've got our place and blah blah blah.
Yeah, there are times throughout the film where you feel like he's thinking about it.
Yeah,
but ultimately he falls on the side of his duty.
Yes,
he does what he's told.
Yeah,
and he maybe is comfortable there.
And such a good contrast for the two. But we can't talk anymore about this.
I'm getting way too analytical back in the Wings of Desire there, and. It's just so good. Anyway.
It is very good. The prophecy, apparently, if we just ram them with our cars and hit them with stuff.
About the prophecy is that whenever the film wants them to be easy to beat up, they are. And there's a whole thing about you can kill them if you cut out their hearts.
Yeah.
If we're going the murdering the angels route, if that's our plan. Now, I think usually violence is not, I don't think, our strong suit.
No.
Or it's not something I like to lean on.
And Constantine kind of gets us a wee route out in the sense that if we can convince the devil, we can convince Lucifer to deal with them.
To help us out. See, that's what I was thinking.
We just mentioned our... we like our video games and stuff.
Maybe
if we continue down this route, we'll end up in hell, so we'll have our souls. And then
if we sin real hard right now, we can go to hell and play Xbox with Lucifer. What do you think his KD ratio is in the I don't know, the Battlefields? I don't think he plays Battlefield. It's too cooperative.
No, he camps and he just.
Oh, is he all what a fucker? Oh. Should we swear? Oh no, that's just crass. Swearing a lot.
Fuck it.
I'm gonna fuck fuckity fuck shite bollocks. Alright, here we go.
Yeah.
We're on the express to quote Hudson in Aliens, we're on the express elevator to hell.
Nice.
Going down. We're actually just falling down a black pit, a la Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
Which is a fun film that I like. I just wanted to say that. So now here we are falling down a big black hole to hell. I think we'll be all right. I think once we get there, we will we'll have a chat with the devil. We'll ingratiate ourselves to him. We'll be fine.
Yeah.
Think we'll be fine? I think we'll be fine.
You know what? At least the music will be better. I was getting pretty sick of those damn harps.
Yeah. I mean, they'll probably have. I assume it's 24/7, like Black Sabbath and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean,
which I'm fucking fine with. You know, Tony Iommi's the dude. So maybe Dio's there. Maybe Dio's plays fucking. Dio's probably headlining every fucking night, isn't he? Oh, I'm actually really excited now. This is gonna be brilliant, awesome. Well, if we manage to claw our way back out of hell, we'll be back next Monday, I guess. So in the interim, we are on Twitter. We are at 7day apocalypse. That is at numeral 7day apocalypse. You can email us on filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. That's filmcast@thisweeksapocalypse.com. We upload full episodes to YouTube as well if you want. So as we fall down the terrible hole, I guess let's just do what Bill and Ted do and play 20 questions. So, John,
I thought we were going to do Sign of the Devil.
Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Hey, Satan!
Sign of the Devil!